This is Remote Ruby.
Have you any remote idea to the meaning of the word?
What's up?
Yo, I'm back. Been a while.
You're back and Jason's gone.
You know, a few months ago, we had like the same situation. I was listening to some old Remote Ruby episodes, and there was a period of time where it was you and me, and then me and Jason, and then you and Jason, and then it was for a few weeks. So we're back on that schedule. Apparently.
Yeah, it was weird. I actually got to see Jason in person this past weekend. We went to
I saw that
baseball game and stuff. It's weird to see Ruby friends in person. Sounds like Jason's going to go to RubyConf.
I'm going to go.
Or try to. I don't know that I will, but definitely I'm going to make it out to RailsConf next year. Excited to go out west.
So this week, Brittany Martin, you released a great podcast episode about the behind the scenes of RailsConf. Did you hear that?
No, I didn't. That sounds really interesting.
It was really interesting. I highly recommend it. But the most interesting thing of all that I highlighted is that Evan said that every year there was some guy who would come to RubyConf and talk about how, not give a talk, but talk to people about how his submarine was running Ruby. And I was like, somewhere out there is a man with a submarine that is running Ruby, and I have to know more.
Why?
So if you have any details on this submarine, I need to know. Twitter, hit me on Twitter at Andrew M. Codes because I need to know more. I have to know more about this.
That's incredible. Yeah, that sounds really awesome. Oh, I don't remember where I saw this. It was probably on Reddit or something a long time ago. And it was like somebody talking about a lot of cars ran Java and then the jokes about, well, no wonder they crash so often.
Number one, that is funny. Yes. And I didn't laugh because of all the pain that just washed back over me of like that experience. The other person on the podcast was Marty Haught. So longtime Ruby Central people. But yeah, we'll link it in the show notes. But I need to know more. I know that Japan has satellites and stuff that are running Ruby and stuff. So
wow, that's pretty cool.
Ruby's still cool. Ruby's still cool.
Yeah.
If there's a submarine out there with Ruby in it, come on, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes you wonder how many other things are using languages and stuff that we just have no idea about. That's so fascinating. I've talked about this a little bit. The Carix project that I built a long time ago that was Python to download Ubuntu packages for my computers that were offline. Some guy emailed me and was like, hey, just want you to know that I really appreciate this. I have a computer that's a government secure computer that doesn't allow network access. So I use your software to download stuff so we can run it on that machine. And I was like, holy crap.
That's cool. And also, like, now the NSA is watching me. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have a government computer where they're like, you're not allowed to download things, if you should be trying to carry over Linux packages. I don't know. That's not my business.
Yeah, I was like, this is fascinating. So you never know how your software ends up getting used at some point.
That's true. I had a discussion with someone the other day. I now live in an area where there is everything, and I'm used to living in an area where there is nothing. And now I live within 20 to 30 minute ride of 4 Apple stores, which has been the absolute worst thing that could ever happen to me. But I was in the Apple store yesterday and I was talking to a guy. He was like a computer science student at like ASU. And he was like, oh, you're a computer science guy. Like, what do you do? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, hey, man, I write Ruby on Rails apps. And he's like, that's cool. I want to work for Tesla and like on their automated car stuff. And I'm like, hey, man, that's cool. I was like, I'm just like very okay with the fact that sometimes my software is not great. And like when a website goes down, that's okay. But when you write bugs in a car, that's not cool. I was like, I kind of like writing software where people don't die if I write bugs, you know? And I don't know if I ever hit him like that. He's like, yeah, that's a good point.
It's really bad when they haven't realized that yet.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, like, I was like, that's cool and all, but man, you got like a whole different level of consequence up there. And I was like, how good of a coder are you really?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like that story of it was some engineer working on some space related software and was like, would you trust this code if you were the one in the spacecraft?
Hell no.
Like, hold on, I'm going to go back and work on this for a minute.
Yeah, hold on.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Yeah. So what's been, is it my turn?
Yeah. We don't even know what to do without Jason here.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask, what's new with you this week now that you are moved and everything? Are you settled?
Yes.
Did you get a new mic?
No. Does it sound good?
I can't remember. It just is different. You've moved. So I was like, I can't remember if you had that before or not.
I wonder if I could have jumbled some knobs on my Scarlett. Maybe I need to look at that. But yes, I have moved. Finally. God, it's been like an incredible past month for me because I was trying to move and then no bueno.
There's a little bit of arson going on. You were doing some insurance fraud and things, right?
Bleep, bleep, bleep. No. So after I fractured my elbow, the weekend before I was supposed to start moving everything, I was like, this is absolutely perfect. Thankfully, I have awesome parents and they came down and helped me get everything. And I packed up my entire car because, as I said before, I was only going to take what could fit in my car. And they took some of the stuff that I had back to my house and gave it to my brothers, and the rest went to Goodwill and stuff like that. So that was on a weekend, and they left on like a Sunday. And Sunday night, my house caught on fire, which kind of sucked, not gonna lie. And thankfully, everyone was okay. Thankfully, a neighbor knocked on the door because our porch was on fire. And it wasn't exactly visible how big it was. And I thought my roommate burned something.
Yeah, right.
And I was about to fall asleep. He was about to fall asleep. Our neighbor banged on our door and they're like, your porch is on fire. So that kind of sucked. I left my phone in the house, so I didn't have any cool pictures of like, don't really want to talk about it, but I'm okay.
What caused it?
It was windy, really windy. And they think something just smoldered for hours.
A burning pile of dog poop in a bag on your front porch?
No poo.
From an angry neighbor?
No overt like anything. It just some accident that kind of eventually became a bad thing. Then that was like, okay, crap, this sucks. Thankfully, again, I have great friends and I crashed with one of my friends for the next few days. And I was like, I'm sleeping on this guy's floor and I'm like, I should just go to Arizona because I wasn't planning to go to Arizona yet because I was still in a cast. But I was like, screw it, I'm going. I drove across the country in like a day or two and made it and hopped around Airbnbs and stuff because I had not found a house yet because there's something wrong with me. They don't know what it is, but something happened to me, obviously. But I hadn't found a house yet. And I was kind of having fun hopping Airbnbs, honestly, just checking things out. And then because I was on PTO for a while. Then I had to start working again. And then I was like, oh crap, I can't focus at all.
Yeah.
I need to find a house now. Then I started looking in earnest and I found a house. There's a housing shortage in Arizona, fun fact. And I had no idea about this because I didn't do any research. Come on. But I found a house. I wanted to get a townhouse, but they were number one, expensive. Number two, like they would add it to the MLS listing. And then, by noon, it would have 300 people who have contacted them and they have already got people. So I applied for a few and didn't get them. My credit's good and my stuff is good. I'm younger and single. One of my friends was like, that's probably not what they're looking for. A lot of people are probably looking for a family to live there for a while. And I have a habit of hopping houses every year or so. But eventually I found something. It wasn't in the exact spot of Phoenix that I wanted to be, but I'm totally happy with how it worked out because it's a 3-bedroom house that was cheaper than most of the townhouses. Nice. So I have a big ass house with a backyard and a garage. And dude, I'm living it up. So that's awesome. My Arizona move.
That is good. Yeah, I was wondering when you were going to have to go back to work and stuff. So that was a good nudge in the right direction to settle down and sounds like you got a great place.
I got an awesome place. So I'm pretty happy about that. I'm still working on the whole, because I only had what I had in my car. Now I've moved into like a 3-bedroom house with absolutely no furniture to my name. And like, I've got my desk. And
is there an IKEA nearby?
There is an IKEA nearby.
There
right?
You go.
So, but here's the thing.
Furnish everything for cheap now.
Sure, dude. But here's the thing. I went to IKEA. I've never been to IKEA before, by the way. I went to IKEA and I was specifically looking for a chair. And I walked in IKEA and my ADHD was like, let's open full throttle. I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. And I was like, all right, I can't do this today. I'm going to have to come back when I have time to do this. So this weekend, that's what I'm probably going to be doing. But their delivery fee is like $50 and I can't fit everything in my car. Mm-hmm. So I was like, damn, so I'm not just going to get this chair ordered. I didn't think it could fit in my trunk without strapping crap down. And I was like, if I'm going to have to pay that much for delivery, then I'm going to like shop.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what I ended up doing when I moved out and stuff. It was go spend a couple grand on a bed and dresser and whatever else, kitchen table and things, and just do it all at once and then spend a day assembling everything and you'll be done. But there's not many cheaper ways of furnishing than IKEA. It's pretty crazy how like affordable it is. Furniture is crazy expensive.
Yeah, dude, insane. What the heck? All right, I had no idea because as you all know, I'm basically a proxy adult, but I've always rented and I move a lot. So like I have my bedroom furniture ish, and then I had my office stuff, and that's it. That's all I own. And then I'm like, okay, I'll probably need a couch, maybe a table, a cup of chair or two. And I'm looking and I'm like, holy crap. What is this nonsense? I was like, are you kidding me? And then I was like, I know beds are expensive because I've shot for beds before, but I forgot how expensive. And I was like, this is ridiculous. So I bought a $30 air mattress at Walmart. Cool, man. I've been good on that. I've just been sleeping on an air mattress. I'm totally fine.
Yeah. You got that,
and I have
that young body that hasn't, once you turn 30 and you start finding all those creaky bones and everything. That's I hit that mark. So I can't do that stuff anymore.
Yeah, I still can. No back pain at all. So that's good. But yeah, so that's where I'm at. And I've decided to go full on with the smart home thing because I've always been interested in it. I've never done it. And the only reason I even considered it is because I looked and the house that I got is a quote unquote smart home. So it's got the AC and stuff is already hooked into like a thing. And so is the door locks. And I was like, oh, maybe I should try it out. So that's where the Apple store being closed is come an issue.
So have you hacked any of that stuff? Have you wired anything up to do some automation stuff or anything?
I've started. So I guess this is cool for the listener. They can't see it, but this is the first thing I got. Raspberry Pi. I got a new Raspberry Pi. I'm going to do the whole Pi hole thing.
I set one of those up. Yeah.
Yeah. Retro Pi. I have to write that down.
It's basically boots up any emulator for any video game console ever made. So that's a good one to do on there. Isn't it the Raspberry Pi 4 is the latest one?
It is. And I got the Raspberry 3 Pi Raspberry Pi 3 because out of pure ignorance, because I was reading a blog article about setting up the Pi hole and they listed like the parts you needed and I just bought them. One of them was a 3, but whatever. Yeah, no,
they're not major changes or anything.
Right.
It's like faster and more RAM or whatever. But if you do use it for like emulating PlayStation 1 games or something, I think it is fairly powerful enough. The 3 that I have would struggle on some N64 games or whatever. And it'll be pretty solid for doing the Pi hole and all that. That's a fun little project to do.
And then I got, because you have to sell your soul to a company. And now thankfully they're coming out with like better specs to like be able to share more between all the big players. But there's like a shared spec that they were starting to implement between Google and Amazon devices so that they can all, talk together. But I hate Google. I hate Google a whole lot. Not going to get into it here, but I have very strong feelings about Google and they're all negative. So I was like, I'm not doing the Google thing, even though obviously like they've got it going on. I feel pretty much similar about Amazon. I like their AWS stuff, I guess, until I open it. But I was like, I don't really want an Alexa. And I was like, because they're a selling company. They're trying to sell me stuff. I didn't really want to buy stuff from a company that's like their only purpose was to sell me more crap. So I really like my Apple stuff. I decided to go with Apple. The other thing is that I just got an iPad after listening to 16 hours of like project management and productivity YouTube while I was driving. And I was like, I have to get an iPad. I have to do it. So I got the Apple TV. I got the Apple HomePod Mini, which like for a small device, this thing has bass.
They do have really good speakers on those. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got like a light strip that's behind my computer. It's not, my office isn't completely finished getting set up yet, but I've got a light kit behind my computer and I got one thing that I haven't set up yet. The whole honeycomb nanoleaf shape hexagon lights that are going to be cool.
Ooh. Yeah, I've wanted the nanoleaf lights in my office forever. So that'll be sweet. I just have to wait until my house is built now. Another year will go by, but I'm really excited to see that because those look just awesome. What was it? They started with triangles, I guess, and now it's...
I think so. Yeah.
Now it's several things. So
yeah, they've got Nanoleaf was the one that Apple was recommending as like very compatible. And I think they said there's 13,000 devices you can use with the Amazon Alexa. And then there's only like maybe 1,000 or less items you can use with an iPod Home with Apple. And because of the security requirements. And I was like, you know what? That's fine. That's fine to me. I'd rather have more security than more stuff. So that's what I'm doing and nerding out about it, having fun, living my best life, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm super excited to see these hexagons and stuff. I didn't even know they had released those. They are just a cool background thing to have in your podcast video background that no one ever sees except for us.
Right. Well, I mean, I've always been like, I want to make YouTube videos and stuff like that and live stream more, but now I have the ability to like make the setup to do it. Right. It's just me. I can do whatever.
Yeah. You could even set up like the whole room to just do that and just always be ready to record. That's the reason why like I'll have my laptop and then I'll have my desktop just like always ready to record. But when I want to get away from there or anything, got my laptop, go sit on the couch or go coffee shop or something. And you at least have your recording place that doesn't require turning stuff on and like moving things around all the time. Every time I want to sit down, you can just dig right in, which is, I think, removing those barriers to getting started is really helpful to just keep that going.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's new in Ruby and Rails land?
Oh, man. I was trying to decide whether to talk about this or not, but I'm just going to do it because we're going to make it a thing. How many newsletters do you think you subscribe to?
It's shrinking all the time because I'm trying to get rid of a lot of them. I would really prefer to go back to having an RSS feed with everything in there because I don't really want them in my inbox. I use my inbox for work now. And what I don't want to do is go to my email and then read articles. There are a few people like Nate Berkopec is a good one that I will always read his stuff. And I don't mind a few, but it really gets overwhelming pretty fast. So more and more newsletter comes in and I just hit unsubscribe. So I don't know, maybe 20 or something, maybe less, something like that. Trying to whittle it down.
This is a quick aside, but I just started using a new RSS reader called Inoreader. And one of the big selling points to me for it is that, I mean, it's got a ton of cool stuff that it does. But one thing it does is it gives you, I don't know how many, but I think you can set up several email addresses. And then you sign up for subscriptions with that email address. And then it puts them all into your RSS feed. So now I'm signed up to a ton of newsletters, but I've been subscribing, don't want them in my email inbox. Now I've started subscribing more because now they all go to my RSS feed. And I'm telling you, I've subscribed to maybe, 20-ish and I read them all.
Yeah, that's cool.
Big plug.
Yeah, I immediately was like, someone could build that with Action Mailbox.
Action Mailbox,
really cool idea for that. I love that. I have to try that. It sounds perfect.
A huge fan. Let me know. I can send you, I think, a subscription. Well, it's free, but then there's some aspects are pro. But honestly, dude, I've used RSS readers before, but this one's been a major change to like my habits and stuff. But side note over, the reason I was asking is because, I consume a lot of content. And just over the past few months, I've started getting more intentional about consuming. Because I don't want to just consume. I want to curate and remember things. And I'm tired of saying, oh, I read this somewhere. I heard this somewhere. I have no idea where. And we don't have enough time to get into all of that. But one thing that I've talked about with several people over the years, especially as newsletters have become more popular, is I want to create like a Ruby newsletter. And not just like from me, because like I don't love email. It's hard for me to want to write my own newsletter. I have one, but just sits there. But I've always wanted to like create like a resource for the community, not or in the same vein as Ruby Weekly, but like with a few different spins on it, things that I want to see and different things like that. So I finally found someone who was like, yeah, I'll do this with you. And that's Collin Jilbert. If you've ever seen him on the interwebs, he and I have been hanging out a lot recently. And so that's been a lot of fun. And he got kind of hype about the idea. So we're going to do it. It's going to be called RubyRadar. And we have set ourselves the goal of this Sunday, the first one will go out. So by the time this is released, our first broadcast should be released.
Do you have a domain for that? Is it like RubyRadar?
It will be by the time this goes out. I think it's going to be RubyRadar.dev. It will probably be that. We'll put in the show notes, but I cheated a little bit. And I don't know if you remember this, but right when the pandemic started, I created this website called rubymeetup.app or something like that. And I wanted to do remote Ruby meetups. And then CodeFund shut down and that kind of all went out, like no longer my priority. So, but I have a almost 400 person mailing list that has never been emailed. And I'm just I'm going to send the first one of that. It feels dirty, but I don't care. I'm just going to be like, hey, at the very top, like you're getting this email because at one point you subscribed to blah, blah, blah. And that's no more, but now this is. So feel free to unsubscribe. No hard feelings. But if you don't, we're in together. So that's what we're going to do. It's going to be like a curated type thing where, because I have all these, like I said, all these different inputs coming. I read tons of great stuff. And one big thing that we're going to focus on is promoting like the lesser known people in the community. And we're hitting back and forth about what we want to do, but we definitely want to make an emphasis on this is something that anyone, if you have great stuff that you want to share, like this is something you can like let us know. We'll get it in there, like, you know, making it more of a community type thing around the cool new stuff that's happening in Ruby. So that's RubyRadar. And I guess link will be in the show notes, but yeah, come check it out because now that I've said this, it has to be by the time this goes out. So
yeah, you've got 7 days, get to work.
We are working on it, thankfully, because thankfully Collin's like going to do the stuff that I can't bring myself to do, which is why I never publish anything.
Are you going to do a website that pairs with it that is a place for you to submit stuff and then that I guess gets curated into the newsletter?
Probably not at first because you know me, I like to go big and wide and I'm trying to go small and narrow here. So I'm just going to use what's built into MailChimp at first because that's what the original list is on. It's going to be small at first. It'll grow, obviously, and we'll make cool things around it. But this initial first one, we're just focused on shipping.
Yeah, that's as it should be. Sounds awesome. So if I'm not on the list, I'll have to get on it. We'll include a link so people can find it and subscribe. So yeah, sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Can't wait for that.
Chris, you know what really just bugs me?
It seems like it's on the tip of my tongue.
Bugs.
Oh, dang it. I knew it.
All bugs.
Of course.
Real bugs. Bugs in my app. Bugs Bunny. Anything with a bug in it bugs me.
I can see why.
So I'm asking Chris for your professional opinion as a thought leader in the industry. How should I handle these bugs?
You know, I learned in school that honey badgers are really good with bug problems.
Do you mean a literal honey badger?
Or maybe honeybadger.io.
But if I sign up for Honey Badger, what do I get?
Well, something that is really useful that actually just saved my butt the other day was their uptime monitoring. I was doing an update on one of my apps and made a deploy and didn't notice right away that it went down. So that was a really good, useful feature there. Not to mention that they've got your error monitoring for those bugs. Yeah. You should go check out Honey Badger, it sounds like.
Sounds like it. See you, Chris.
What else is new? Well, there's an announcement on the blog of like new features that are, I guess, just in past month or whatever, merged into master. No exact signs on when Rails 7 is shipping exactly, but it is nice to see these like summaries of what's changed. The active record encryption stuff got merged. I guess that was in the past month. It feels like it was longer ago, but I guess not. That I cannot wait for. Probably the coolest part about the encryption feature is that you can add it to existing columns without any changes and like query those with unencrypted data in it and then like migrate to that, which I think is It's just the killer feature for upgrading to Rails 7 and then just adding encryption to email addresses or whatever you haven't encrypted in the past. That's awesome. So that is something I'm super looking forward to. Looks like some good speed improvements. Cache, active support cache got speed bump. Looks like active models generated methods, reduced memory and speed boot up times.
I saw the invert where, and then there was another an enumerable soul. Those are kind of cool.
Yeah, it looks like the logger for active record is 7 times faster, which is impressive. There's a cool like nesting for locales now. So you can do the config locales and then the locale name as a folder and then put like models.yml in there. That's a pretty neat improvement for organizing those. And then you're not searching through a giant folder of all the locales. That gets a little tricky to manage. So that's nice.
Yeah.
And that's like similar to that draw that got added to the routes. Or it sounds like the draw was a feature in Rails a long time ago and it got removed and now it's back. So it's nice to see that. When you get big files or folders, it's nice to be able to split them up a little bit and just find what you need at a glance without searching through that file. One interesting thing is they added support for ranges in Active Job Serializer, which I'm like surprised that wasn't already in there, but I've looked through that code before and yeah, it definitely wasn't. The ranges are like, I guess probably lesser used. They're more useful in like queries and stuff. You're probably not passing them into jobs that often, but that's a useful thing to have.
I was going to say the active model validation now has that in thing. So you can, right now, if you want to specify that a value is between two numbers, you have to do greater than 50 and then you have to do a less than, 100. But now you can do dot or you can do in and then give it a range.
Oh, that's sweet. Yeah. Because I knew they had that kind of like the in, but you could give it an array as well. But the range is super handy for anything like that. Yeah, soul was added. So you can find the soul. This method returns the soul item of the enumerable. If there are no items more than one, it will raise an exception. Okay. That's pretty cool. That was added to active support. Deprecate enumerable sum and array sum. Since Ruby 2.4 included these methods, Rails can start using the native versions.
Love that.
That's sweet.
Rails 7 now allows constructors on the has one through associations, which I ran into not long ago. I'm pretty hype about. So like if you have a has one through, you can do the build association and create association. Like,
I didn't even realize they didn't have that. Yeah.
Yeah. If you have a member, it has one current membership and has one club through the current membership. Now you can do member.build club or member.create club. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. One of the cool things here is it looks like the nested secrets in the Rails credentials. You can now use method calls for like the nesting, which it used to be like just the parent level would work. And then you would have to dig or whatever into the nested stuff because they'd just be hashes. And I actually dove into that a bit in this week's Go Rails screencast on custom configuration. Because if you're not familiar, there's like a config for, and you can give it a name and it will look for the YAML file in the configs, which is cool. But then you can also do custom configuration options in like application RB or your environments, which is useful, except it doesn't support like infinite nesting. It's 1 or 2 levels. And then it will start to throw exceptions. And I dove into that code a little bit and looked into and explained a little bit about how it worked in like the Rails source. And there's actually a cool class called custom in there that uses method missing to basically use that for the chaining. So you can call the credentials or like the config, then your key and then another key. And it will just convert those method calls into lookups in the hash for the config. It's pretty sweet how it works. And it's 10 lines of code. It's pretty simple too. But
Love
just
that.
uses that Ruby magic of method missing. Other than that, looks like just a few other little things here and there. Nothing super major, but there's an interesting one on disable joins option for has one relations. So that if you have a has one through, where the tables are in separate database clusters, it will not try and create a join. It will actually query the two databases separately, which is interesting and also a tricky one because
that sounds tricky as heck.
Yeah. Yeah. Like getting into just building an ORM on its own is hard enough to be able to analyze and create the proper joins and everything and the associations. But then to also do that between tables and then now multiple database tables or databases and their tables. Yeah, that is a lot of logic behind the scenes going on to pull all that off.
Did you see the Rails account, which doesn't tweet often, tweeted the other day? They're asking a question about which debugging kind of drop-in do you use? We have binding.irb, which is built in. Then you have pry, binding.pry. And then you have that other one that's in Rails that I've never ever used in my entire life.
Bybug?
What is it? Bybug. Yeah. Never used it ever in my life. But they were asking, like, do you use Bybug, binding.irb, binding.pry? And there was one other one. And they were like, pry came out on top, which I would expect. And they were like, thanks. This is helpful for, or thank you for the next version of Rails. And I was like, is pry going to come into Rails? ? Because that would be awesome.
That's pretty interesting. I've found binding IRB to be plenty for me. So I pretty much just use that all the time. But pry has a much nicer interface to work with and stuff. So that would be...
Especially if you want to go to the next, if you want to use like next and stuff.
Yeah, which it's much easier to do that stuff in pry. So that would be nice to have as a baked in feature. I do often use web console when the Rails error page comes up. That is just phenomenal to be able to click on the stack trace and then jump into a method like inside of Rails and poke around and see what the variables are there. That is one of the coolest things ever. And I think that is one of the selling points for Ruby over Crystal. When I was doing some Crystal for fun, when things went
Crystal
wrong,
Chris, what's happened to you? No, I'm just kidding.
Of course I played with it, but that was one of the showstoppers for me. It was like, this is cool. I love that it's a Ruby syntax, but it's not Ruby. It isn't. That's just the thing. It's compiled. You can't do this cool stuff that you can do with binding IRB or pry or whatever. And yeah, things like, I don't know, macros and stuff, class level things are like way different. It just feels a lot less flexible than at least what I'm used to here. And the one thing that I was really surprised with was there's a lot more times where I had to specify types than I expected. Like it wasn't able to detect the types as smoothly as I imagined. A lot of the demos that are like, here, we can magically figure out the types and support strings and integers for the same function. And it's, the reality is you build anything somewhat complex and it can't do that. Yeah.
And that's what I figured. I mean, because come on, we have all these like beautiful, in the perfect academic setting, works with all these things. And the academic settings, why would you ever need a service object when you can just put it in your Rails models and stuff like that? But in the real world, we got to ship things and it usually doesn't end up working that perfectly because we all have these weird use cases that they've never thought about. And Crystal's young. Crystal's been a little bit popular on the Twitters recently. Someone was asking me how I thought about it. They wanted to talk to me about it. I'm like, I tried it a while ago. I thought it was cool, but I'm not intending to use it right now just because I don't need it and I don't get paid to write it. And it only just recently became 1.0. But I will say that if you're interested in it, I know, and you want to build like web stuff, Lucky Framework by Paul, his name I just forgot, but his name's Paul, is super cool. I've tried that before. I enjoyed that. The docs are amazing. So you can check that out if you're interested.
Yeah. And I believe, so one of the old Go Rails members has started Lucky Casts and does the same thing, screencast for Lucky videos. So those are worth checking out. There's some cool stuff there and he's getting really into it and involved in. There's definitely some cool stuff going on. And if you ever need to build a piece of your application that's really fast and isn't a major jump from Ruby, it's a great language. You can go build some little piece of your app that needs to be ultra fast. And maybe it's something simple as like an API endpoint that like an analytics endpoint that would get slammed pretty hard, then cool, you can have that and it's going to be familiar enough, but you can make it minimal and fast and just run it as a little service. And there you go. You can leave the rest of it to Rails or whatever. And I think it's a really good tool for the complementary skill set there or whatever. And it's not a big context switch going to Go or something would be.
I hear a lot about, we have this thing now where you can split off part of your app into a little microservice and we'll use Rust or Crystal or Go or whatever, and it'll be super duper fast. But again, going back to the real world, what I typically find is people split off a part of their app and they make a new Rails app. So I don't know, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine if you're building Honey Badger, the
Honey Badger plug.
Exactly. Yeah. Like the endpoints for receiving errors has to be really on the ball. You don't want that to ever be slow or delayed or down. And using a compiled language just to record that stuff is great. And for handling massive traffic, I think it's not a bad idea to like do that. And I think you see that all the time. It's like little pieces of an app are split out into a compiled language, and then you can use Ruby for the majority of stuff or whatever. But yeah. Speaking of other languages, we just merged the Turbo Native registration into Jumpstart and the Swift iOS app, which is pretty fun. It's been really fun working with Joe on this because I'll do the Rails side of things, the API, and then he'll go build out the native view for that and then send over the HTTP request for registration or whatever. So we have all that working, and we're a little behind on that because there's a configuration option of if you want to collect like an account name when you sign up, like your organization name, we have an option to turn on and off that. And if you don't have it on, we don't need to have the field displayed, and we'll create an account just with the same name as you signed up with for your user account. And that just keeps it simple, but we had put that off and launched without it. And it was nice to be able to knock that out before he goes on leave and has a kid and everything. But it's pretty cool that the way the login and all that stuff works is like so simple. It's just collect all the data, just do it in Swift and then package it up and make an HTTP request. And it feels very similar to what you would do in the browser with an AJAX request or something. Yeah. It's in Swift, but it's conceptually the same as what you would do in the browser. You're just not using JavaScript. And then he used a bunch of the Swift UI, which I haven't really looked into, but it's the programmatic way of defining your interface, which is neat. Like works really well, except he ran into the checkbox for terms and privacy. That turned into be like a funny thing that was like, yeah, it's really hard to align this stuff all in line with Swift UI. So he ended up doing the whole thing is clickable, and then it will ask you, do you want to see the terms of service or the privacy policy? And then clicking on that opens up the browser with those. So I think it turned out great, and I'm excited to see people using that and stuff. It has been fun. Yeah. Mobile stuff is a really fun thing to do. If you've been doing Rails for a long time and you're getting a little antsy to do something new and learn something new, that's a really good place to dive in. I've been having a lot of fun with it. Even though I've left all the Swift code up to Joe, I've been like, okay, explain all the concept and how you organize it and all that. And it's really not that different than you might expect. Conceptually, it's just, well, we have different classes. This coordinates this. And we have a coordinator's concept. And it's similar to like a controller. It's aware of how to handle this view and whatever interactions and stuff. And you can quickly see the comparisons to like MVC or whatever. And it's not that hard, but the initial wrapping your head around the concepts is I think probably the hardest part.
Right. I've always been interested in it. I've always been like a lurker on iOS related stuff like that. Like I'm familiar with Swift UI, never used it, but I'm glad we got Joe, that episode with Joe, which was 2 episodes ago, I think 2 or 3, because it's been really interesting to follow y'all's kind of journey with this, especially like he's been blogging a lot about it. And so great stuff. Definitely recommend going and listening to that episode, and good luck, Joe, on your new adventure in parenthood. Hopefully that goes well and you and your partner are healthy and safe and all that stuff. And then you can get back to birthing new Rails apps. Swift Rails.
Yeah, exactly. I ditto that. That sounds perfect. Just go birthing. That's maybe the new job title or something. Instead of software engineer, you're like,
I'm going to change my Twitter bio from like, I make Rails apps to like, I birth web applications on Ruby.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, what else? I can't think of a whole lot. I've just been a little busy with, so we are, as of today, like a week away from closing on our loan on the house.
Hey.
And they got the excavator out and they put in stakes in the ground, and then it started raining. And so then, of course, it should be dry by the weekend, the long weekend with the holiday, and then rain starting Tuesday when they would get back. So I don't know if that's going to be, it's going to be a pain just waiting on stuff, but making progress. I'm like, it's been so long. So I'm going to guess that every day I'll just go out for lunch and then just swing by and fly the drone around a little bit and stuff. That's been a blast to watch. And then I think it'll be really cool to look back on it. So I might end up doing some videos on YouTube of here's how a house is built. So there's so many similarities of things between building software and building anything really, but building a house is a fascinating one. You don't have to fight things like water like you do in a house. There's no equivalent that's trying to destroy your apps all the time, except for maybe malicious bots on the interwebs. But there are a lot of those polished things that happen. Yeah, you know what? If you go and hide your screws underneath stuff, then it looks way better than if they're visible. And the same thing applies to like, polish your CSS and your JavaScript, and then
pages, people.
Yeah, exactly.
404 pages.
Whenever they look like the Rails default 500,
then we all know.
Yeah, everybody knows, and that's shame on you.
Last thing I thought about was that the CFP for RubyConf is either now out or will be out very soon.
And RubyConf is November?
I think so. November. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, I think it usually, November 8th through the 10th. Is it going to be in person?
Yes.
Ooh.
So far, so good. That was one thing they talked about on Brittany's podcast was about RubyConf, whether it'll be in person. So far, it's looking like it might be.
Cool. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's so nice to get everybody back in person. The thing is, those conferences, or at least to me, when we briefly met at RailsConf and stuff, but like the hallway track for me is the whole reason to go. So you can't quite do that on Discord and the online conference format. So I cannot wait.
You want to hear like a weird neurotic thought that I had? It's going to be weird. But I feel the only reason it's weird, and it's so weird that I feel
remember
like
it's only you and me here. No one else will hear this, right?
It's a safe space. I feel like other people are thinking this, and that's why I'm just going to go say it. So when we get to this conference, right? Picture I walk in the conference, right? And then I see Jason. And Jason and I haven't seen each other since RailsConf. Do I hug Jason? Do I shake his hand? What happens here? What's this interaction?
Yeah, you get as soon as possible within the 6 feet. And you get just face to face, like nose to nose. That's how you do it. Yeah. I think there are some people that will still want to do social distancing and stuff.
Right.
Which is good.
It's gonna be weird, but it's gonna be good. Yeah. I mean, we obviously want everyone's safety, but I also want to do like a sorority girl run up and jump and hug Jason. So
yeah. I mean, when I saw Jason the other day, we were like, screw it. We're going to hug because we haven't seen each other for so long, you know?
Like, I
think that's what's going to happen a lot. So yeah, it is the number of cases here in Missouri or something, I think my wife said was like 7 or whatever. And things are way better, especially if people are not going to be, if they're vaccinated and they're not going to die, then it's way more acceptable to do things. And actually all of St. Louis and the county, no mask mandates anymore. Some restaurants and things still are like, yep, keep your masks, and like keep doing that, which is cool with me.
Yeah.
That wasn't really too bad. It was just like,
I really don't care
felt
about
afraid
masks.
to go anywhere. You know?
Right. I don't care about wearing a mask at all. Honestly, I kind of like it because number one, I don't really have to shave. And if I need to shave to where the point where it's like starting to bug me, like I don't have to shave well.
Yeah.
Because I can just put the mask on. No one's wiser.
You never have to brush your teeth again.
I haven't had a cold in so long, man. And I hate being sick. I can't remember the last time I was sick. So yeah, the mask thing doesn't bother me. And I think this has always been like the problem with it though, is that there's no consistency at all whatsoever. And some of it doesn't make, like, people are like, well, like, but then what about this? And I'm like, yeah, that's a great question. But here we are. We're in America. This is how we do crap. So if it is in person, I'm sure there'll be standards and things that we will all adhere to or not be there for long.
Yeah. Right. I can't wait. It's just been one of those things that like I took for granted. And then once it's gone, you're like, oh my gosh, I really miss conferences.
Right.
So
now that I'm in Phoenix, which, like I've said, I've always lived in small areas. There's a Ruby meetup, right?
Oh yeah,
I'm freaking hype about that because that was why I got into podcasting in the first place. I had no Ruby community. Now I might have a Ruby community. They haven't been meeting obviously because of COVID, but I'm about to find the organizer and be like, yo, so what's up? Because I'm trying to get in there.
Yeah, I feel like now's a time where you could start it up again and things. I think our meetup shut down too, but we only had eight people or so usually, so it was small. The JavaScript one took off. We originally were like, we revived the Ruby one, and then we also did the JavaScript one, but the JavaScript one started to be like 35 people and then 50 people, and it just started to get really big, and then the Ruby one started to dwindle. But now Ruby's cool again, remember? Like,
dude, Ruby is freaking cool. It's in a submarine.
There is, yeah. I mean, that is what we all do. We all drive the Ruby submarine. Maybe that's an idea. What if we rent a submarine and do a conference on a submarine?
Yo.
How's that sound?
What, isn't there there's a Ruby conference that's on a boat, right? There definitely is.
That sounds familiar. Yeah.
It's in Europe. I think it's like Ruby on the sea. Maybe we'll do Ruby under the sea.
Ruby under the sea. I like it.
And then we can sing that song.
That's a good thing to end on.
I think so.
All right. Well, I will talk to you next week. Maybe not. Jason will be back. We will see. But yeah, until then, catch you later.
Later.